Now that we've opened the file and verified that it opens, we can move on to the next instruction, which is to read data from the file and store it in the parameter arrays. Some details that are important: that we need to protect the arrays from going out of bounds. And as we add values, we need to increment that index parameter. So each file contains payroll data, and each payroll data takes up 2 lines. The first line contains hours worked, pay type, and pay rate. And then the second line contains a name in last first format. And we can look at one of these files, so we see that hours worked, pay type, pay rate, and the name. So that's what we need to read. We're going to be looping, and we want to loop to the end of the file. All right, so we're going to write a loop, and the loop is going to, we're going to read the first thing, right? And so we'll just use our file named in, our object in, and we'll read hours. And we're going to store it in the array, in the hours array. At what location? At the size location. That's where the next set of data goes, is at index size. And then we'll read in the next thing, which is the pay type. Remember that we don't get to pick what comes next. We have to go exactly the order that it's in the file. So pay type comes next, and then pay rate. So that's our first line. And then our next one is to get the name. And since it's going to have a space in it, we're going to have to use getLine. And we want to get it from the in object, and we want to store it in the names array. Again, at location size. Oh, there you go. See, I forgot to add index. You see, you can't just read into an entire array. That's why I have that red squiggly. I have to put the index. And again, we want this to be at index size, because that's the current location for it. And then now we're using getLine. So here we're transitioning from an extraction operator to getLine. Remember, that's our time when we need to remember to ignore. So we use the in object and ignore, so that we ignore that carriage return that will be interpreted by getLine as an empty string. All right, so that reads it, and then after we read it, we want to increment size so that the next set of data will be stored in the next index. So now we've read it, but we haven't protected from going out of bounds. And so what we want to do here is we want to read as long as size is less than the max, right? And that's that K max size. So we're going to put that, remember to put it first before you do the read, otherwise you'll get one read out of bounds. So as long as size is less than K max size, and then we can read. And here's the part that protects it from going out of bounds, and here's the part that does the read. And since we put this part first, it'll make sure it didn't go out of bounds, and then if it didn't go out of bounds, it'll read. Otherwise, it'll drop out. All right, so we've read it and stored them in the arrays. Now, this is another point where we can test and see what we've done here. So we've already called it, but now we've only printed out the message. Let's go ahead and print out the other details. Let's go ahead and print out what's the current size when we get back. So that'll be informative to see if our size changed at all. And we're hoping that it did. And so size. And then we want to loop through the data and read the data in the arrays. So we're going to do a for loop, int I equals 0, and as long as I is less. Now we have two choices here. We can either print out the entire array, all the arrays, or the arrays that we've filled up. So if we only go to size, then it's only going to show the part of the arrays that we have filled up. So let's go ahead and do that. And we really just want to print out hours. We'll just kind of print it out just on one line. Oh, not size, sorry. Now we want to do I, right? We're going to loop through and print out several of them. So we're going to do one at a time. Pay type, I, pay rate I, and name, and let's just put the data each on one line. Now, that'll be too messy if we don't put spaces between them, right? So I'm going to add some spaces so that they're just not on top of each other. All right, so now if we loop through and print those out, then we should see what they are. Oh, here it's complaining name. I forgot the index on the names array. It's picky. It makes me do every detail exactly right. All right, so there we can run it. And there we go. So that says we read out. Let's go ahead and compare it to what we have in the file. So there's the file, and there's the output from our program. And sure enough, it did Bill Collins, Bart Smith, all the way down. Let's see if it got the very end. You always want to check the beginning and the ends and then a couple in the middle. But there, it got the very end one. Yep. And we can check some in the middle, and we've checked the first. So there we go. We were able to read everything and store it in an array.